Hi friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and today's video is focused on that magical window of tarot history circa 1650 between Paris, Marseille, and Bologna, Italy. The video that I did a few days ago, the most recent video I did, where I show, I compare a few decks, prompted me because a number of times I commented how the Mitelli was done at around the same time, neck and neck with the Noblet. And also the Tarot of Paris. So I figured instead of just talking about them, I might as well just do a video whereby, we can see what I'm talking about. Now, I'm not sure if I have them in correct chronological order because, these dates are circa, right? So we're not really sure. But the 5 decks that I've shown, and I want to give credit to the publishing houses. This one is the Anonymous Tarot of Paris, created in Paris by an unknown creator. And this particular deck that I'm referencing was published by the International House of Tarot in Italy. The second one is a Vieville. And although I have 3 copies of this deck, I chose to do this video with the Peterson deck because it's as close to a facsimile while still, being very crystal clear and able to easily see what we're looking at. For the Noblet, again, I have a Peterson and I also have an Artisan. The reason I didn't choose the Artisan publication is because that one was like a first edition before they made their edits and their corrections, and so it's not the final presentation that they'd have. So I chose the Fleur Noir Noblet even over the Joseph Peterson, mostly because I wanted to give a nod to Fleur Noir, and I'm already representing the Peterson. For the Mitelli, it's the Lo Scarabeo Anima Antiqua. And for the Fine Dalla Torre, this one is done by the International Museum of Tarot in Italy. And I have to correct myself. In error, I said the International Tarot Museum in Italy for this one, and that is incorrect. This one was published by... Oh, it is. It was. In the International House of Tarot. Okay, so there we have it. I was right, but I second-guessed myself. Okay, so why did I pick these cards? Because they're the same period of time and from different areas, right? And we have 5 distinct decks of cards, despite the period of time being around the same time. Now, the anonymous, and I want to give credit to this beautiful wand. I had recently done a lecture for Artisan Tarot. Some of you may have seen that lecture. And as a gift, Dr. Jeremy from the Temple of Miriam sent me this beautiful wand as a gift. And I don't, typically use it for pointing to things, but I use it for my, when I do ceremonies and stuff. But for today, it'll serve its purpose well. But I wanted to give credit to Dr. Jeremy. Okay, so the Anonymous Tarot of Paris by an unknown person, obviously from Paris. Now let's see, where is Paris? It's so hard to see. Yeah, I think I can't see Paris, but I think it's right around here. Oh, there it is. It's up here. So here's Paris. So we see Paris quite north, right? Marseille is down here. There's Marseille. Here's Lyon. Dijon. So Paris is all the way up here. So it's not in proximity really to Marseille. So it's quite not a stone's throw. And it's in proximity more to Belgium than to Italy or Switzerland. The Vieville, also Paris. The Noblet, Marseille. The Mitelli, Bologna, which would be around here somewhere. And as well as the Fine Dalla Torre, also from Bologna. So I just wanted to give you an idea of the locations and their proximity to one another. My guess is that the tarot, the anonymous tarot of Paris, probably, my guess, it's just like a hunch, came first. I really like this deck, and as I mentioned in a couple of videos, it's like my favorite deck. Probably neck and neck with the Mitelli. Once somebody creates a Mitelli deck that has cards 2 through 5, it'll be like right up there. Neck and neck is the same as a favorite deck. And I like the Tarot of Paris because there's something about it that makes me think it's a missing link, with connections to other tarot decks. True, Paris is not in close proximity to Italy, but stylistically, it adheres to some familiar things that we see in Italian decks. Now, the first deck that we might say, oh yeah, that's Tarot of Marseille, I guess it would be both of these two decks, the Vieville and the Noblet, probably with the Noblet having the edge on that one because it is more consistently, Marseille when we get to the pips. And to some of the, Triumph cards. And these two decks from Bologna has its own history of card making, right? Doesn't seem connected at all, to the Tarot of Marseille. So all of these decks within probably just 10, 20 years of one another, and not necessarily aware of what, what is happening in proximity to themselves because they're not right on top of one another, right? So I just thought it would be very interesting to see. So here we have the Fool from the Anonymous Tarot of Paris. The Fool is wandering. He's got bells. He's making a reference to a court jester staff. I wonder too, I've mentioned this in a few other videos, in the 1500s, there was a play, I forget what it was called, but an Italian play, making, reference to the Fool card carrying a mirror because in the play, there was a competition between two innkeepers, one who was the mirror, and the other one was like the Inn of the Fool or something like that. And so we had like a word game here happening in the Tarot of Paris where the Fool is looking in the mirror. So it's almost like it's a reference to an Italian play. And I hope all that made sense. So I thought that was very interesting. In the Parisian Tarot and in the Noblet Tarot, we have fools walking in the opposite direction, but they're very similar. Otherwise, the Noblet has bells on his hat, bells around his waist. I'm not sure we see any bells on the Vieville, but we see, the dog cat kind of creature. We see a walking stick. We still see the face of the face of the Fool, right? So we still have that kind of reference to the Fool on a stick, which is very, very interesting in both of these decks. And here we have the face of the Fool in the walking stick, and this one is more on the stick that carries his worldly possessions. But in the Vieville, he's got the ears of a donkey, maybe, whereas in the Noblet, he's got the jester's cap with bells. But, you know, it's very interesting, right? I mean, these were all from the same period of time for them to have an Italian reference, a reference to an Italian play. And in the two decks from Bologna, we have a Fool, one making noise, right? Like a musician, a wandering musician, a one-man band almost. He's got an elaborate headpiece, including feathers. There is no walking stick, and neither is there a backpack on a stick. And there isn't one here either. Here he's, you know, dressed in disarray, as he is. That is something they have in common with the French decks. He's not in disarray, is he? And let's check this one. Nope, no disarray of clothing. So there is a similarity here. We start to see clothing being kind of sloppy, but not here. I mean, this is why I love to look at decks and compare them, because you start seeing trends, right? You know, around the same time, you know, you're seeing different things. You're not one area, one school has the, reference to the head of the Fool on a stick, which is an Italian play that we're not seeing in the Italian decks, which is crazy. But remember also that we don't have all these, all the decks that were created during this period of time. These 5 are only the ones I have that were from this period of time. But when I researched, one of the reasons that I only have 5 is because I don't think there were that many, decks that have at least enough cards, for us to really get a gist of what the finished decks look like. The Chasen was mentioned, in Stuart Kaplan's encyclopedia as being 1672, and I believe there is a stamp on the Chasen of 1672, but greater thinkers than I have concluded that it came a bit later and that the 1672 is incorrect or a misleading date. But as far as I know, these are the decks from that period of time that are available to most of us. Okay, the Fool, the Magician, the card we now call the Magician, Le Batelier. We have a gentleman, playing some kind of game in a familiar way that we see the mountebank of other decks from France. Here we see adults, so there are other adults engaged in it, and we have a monkey and a dog under the table. In the Vieville, we see a mountebank with his trick game, and as we see here also in the Noblet. Now in the one Italian deck, we see the same tradition, right? We see that. We see the same thing that's happening in the French decks in this deck from Bologna, the Fine Dalla Torre. But we don't see it in the Mitelli, which is at the same period of time, right? All these decks are probably within a 20 20-year period of time. But we see a magician with children making music, making noise, which is similar to where is it? The Fool, also from Bologna, making noise, right? So, it's just really weird how certain images are glommed onto or, appear for a split second. Okay, we have the female Pope in the anonymous Tarot of Paris. She has keys. There is a book that looks like she's about to drop. So she has the ingredients that we're accustomed to seeing. I don't know that there are keys here, but she does have a book, as she does with the Noblet. And the triple-tiered crown. Here it looks like it's cut off. And in the Italian decks, now remember, this is Bologna, and there were some political considerations that those folks in Bologna, Italy, had to deal with that other areas of Italy didn't have to deal with. And that was the sensitivity between cards 2 and 5. The female Pope, the Empress, the Emperor, and the male Pope. So in the Mitelli deck, they have 2 popes and 2 secular leaders. But in the Fine Dalla Torre, they still have the female Pope, the Emperor, the Empress, the Emperor, and the male Pope. In fact, I'm going to switch these 2 decks because these 2 decks are probably more correctly put in this order. And it's unusual in the Fine Dalla Torre female Pope that she's giving the benediction that we usually see in the male Pope. That's kind of interesting. The female Empress. Well, there's only one Empress. The name just says Empress. I'm sorry. I'm goofy today. I apologize. So we see here between the Vieville and the Noblet a similar image in reverse. Crown is slightly different, but she's looking head on, whereas in the anonymous Tarot of Paris, she's looking in the opposite, in another direction. And she does not have the orb and the cross, nor has she a shield with a eagle. But we see the particular staff and the particular shield with an eagle here. We don't have the shield with an eagle here, but we do have the orb. But not part of the staff, which is interesting. And in the Mitelli, we have an emperor, the second of 2 emperors, or the first of 2 emperors, with an orb and a staff. So, in all 4, we have the orb and the cross present. May not be in the staff both times, but it's there. It's just interesting to me. Okay, the Emperor. And we see the hint of an eagle here. Again, the orb and the cross, an eagle, or cross and eagle as in the Empress. Again, in the Bologna, no eagle, but we have the orb. No cross. And in the Mitelli, same. I won't be showing the pips. Maybe I'll show a few random pips, but I'm not going to go through the whole pip. So for those of you concerned about time, I'm really trying to contain this video to the Triumph cards or the trump cards. So with the Pope, we have the keys, which in other cards we just saw, the keys were represented in the female Pope. We have some kind of busted Sphinx type figure. We do see a pyramid, which is very interesting. We see the stigmata on hands. We definitely see the triple tiered crown. In the Vieville, we have two pilgrims or perhaps cardinals before the Pope, who does not have a triple tiered crown in the Vieville, but he has like a bishop's hat. I think that's a bishop's hat. Both gentlemen of both decks are bearded, as he is in the Noblet. And as in the Vieville, we have two individuals coming before the Pope with a reference to the stigmata. And, you know, they both have the hat that would identify these gentlemen as either pilgrims or a cardinal, I believe. So we see parallels here, although in this one he has a triple tiered crown. We get to the Fine Dalla Torre. We see reference again to the stigmata, probably the triple tier. We have the sun, which does not appear in the others. And we have no pilgrims. And in the Mitelli, the second of two popes, really without anything to identify him as a pope other than the triple tier hat crown. The Lover card, we have Cupid, and we have a couple engaged in an activity. I don't know what. I don't want to speculate, but they are actively engaged in an amorous event, or so it appears. In the Noblet, in the Vieville, we have three individuals, with the exception of the gowns, you know, on the two on each end. It's kind of hard to distinguish what genders they are, but you know, it could just be the quality of the wood block, right? But it appears to be a gentleman in the center with two women, Cupid with his bow and arrow. Very similar to the Noblet. Again, in opposite direction, right? The image is kind of like a flip. In the Fine Dalla Torre, we have Cupid and lovers before a fountain on either side of a fountain. And in the Mitelli, we have a simplified card representing romantic love with the figure of Cupid with his bow and arrow. He's blindfolded, which he is in the Noblet, not the Vieville. And in the Paris deck, he is also not blindfolded. So the only thing that transfers between the Noblet and the Mitelli, same period of time, just a different area, one in, Marseille and one in Bologna. We have the appearance of Cupid, who is blindfolded in both. And we get a sense that this is romantic love because the heart is on fire. Okay, we have the Chariot. Now, in the Anonymous Tarot of Paris, the Chariot is drawn by two geese. And there is someone who looks like he's, keeping the geese on task. It's a very interesting choice of wagon pullers. Oh, I got these mixed up, my bad. And we see the scalloped edge, which we so often associate with TDM1 style. Peculiar looking faces on horses. Again, the same artistic flair of the canopy being scalloped or rippled. And, a very similar looking chariot, right? Like splitting the card in half. They definitely need it. I need to believe that they definitely, both of these card makers were aware of the other, right? Because stylistically, they're very similar. The Fine Dalla Torre is quite different, as is the Mitelli. In fact, the Mitelli is a woman. And in the others, the charioteer is a man, right? That's a gentleman here. A gentleman with a crown, maybe a prince. Same. The wings of Hermes or Mercury on his helmet. And a woman. Without the benefit of horses or geese. But there are two birds, which is interesting. They're not pulling it. I don't know. There are lines coming from underneath, but I don't know exactly what is happening there. This is very interesting. In the Justice card, it's like we have the face of Janus, a male and woman, or a shaven man and a unshaven man. But I think they're men, like faces of two different genders. We have the tilted scales of justice. We have a sword. And spelling, irregularity, which again suggests, was this person unfamiliar with French? I don't know. It's weird. Then we have the Vieville. We see what appears to be wings, but also has uneven scales and a sword. And here, not only she only has one face, and not only is she not blindfolded, but she looks directly at us. So she's not looking off to the side. Neither is the Noblet. Again, a reverse image of the Vieville. The scales are slightly askew. Again, scales that are askew, a sword, a woman. She's not really looking directly at us. Her glance is more askew, just like the scales. And in the Mitelli, the scales slightly askew and the sword. So around this period of time, we're not seeing even scales, right? So that's another thing that that I'm noticing. We're not seeing even scales. And Justice is not blindfolded, right? Except for in this one, right? We have a blindfolded Justice with two faces. No blindfold. She's just looking at us in these decks, right? No blindfold. No blindfold. No blindfold. Hermit. Now, I don't rightly know what he has in his hand. It's certainly not an hourglass nor a lantern. He seems to be holding in his other hand a walking stick and some type of beaded thing. I don't see a crucifix, so I can't say that it's a rosary. He's barefoot, he's walking, and from where he's walking on a road that comes from a tunnel. Right? Now, I do have the book, and it is written in English, and they did describe what this was, but I don't think they know either. So it's kind of an unknown thing. They only speculate what that might be. So did I get this out of order? Oh my goodness, I did. Let me fix, because I am from 8, I should go to 9. Oh yeah, I did. I got this one out of order. My apologies. Give me a second so I can fix. Okay, the reason for that was when I was putting the decks in order. The 9 and the 11 of the Vieville got switched, because it was printed in reverse. But again, as in the Tarot of Paris, we have an individual walking. Not clear what this is. It could be the underside of his cloak, as in an effort to show that the cloak is kind of fluid, because the outside of the cloak is red. So it would make sense if that were the cloak. Some people think it's like a flame or something. I don't know. Again, this could just be the edge of the cloak. It doesn't have to be a walking stick at all, which could explain how, if this one came first, there might have been confusion as to what this was, and maybe it became a walking stick. And here, he has a lantern in the Noblet. In Italian tradition, the hermit was often he sometimes was a hunchback. He sometimes had wings to show the passage of time. He was frequently on crutches as an infirmed individual. Here he also has a column. So it's very, very interesting. Is this where the lantern came from? Thinking that this was a flame and that this was a walking stick. And I was going to save it for when we got to the star, but I'm going to cut to the chase right now. Oh yeah, and we'll talk about here. So here we have the other Italian Mitelli, where he has the wings and the crutches, right? But let me go to the Mitelli star, and we'll get... What do we see? In the Mitelli star, we see the individual that, this is the star card, but we see what has kind of become the hermit, right? So around this period of time, remember these decks are all done within about a 20-year period of one another. Here we have what might have been misunderstood as a flame and a walking stick. In the Noblet, it's a lantern and a walking stick. These two, very Italian traditional cards representing the hermit. But in the same Mitelli deck, for the star card, we have the individual who's walking with a stick in his arm here and with a lantern. So somehow, were these maybe two cards seen and digested and became the older gentleman with a walking stick and a lantern? You see what I'm saying? I mean, they were contemporary of one another. Stuff sometimes gets lost in translation. So they, at some point, the French, I guess, did away with the old gentleman with crutches and wings. Sometimes he had an hourglass, and somehow became more similar to the Mitelli star card than to the card that we're familiar with as the Hermit in the Tarot of Marseille, and has been the tradition of the Hermit ever since. I hope I expressed myself clearly on that. Give me a second to put these back in order, because when I don't take the time to do it, then I have a lot of confusion on my end trying to put the cards in order. Okay, so here we have number 10, Fortune's Wheel. Not so atypical. Someone's on top, someone's on the bottom, someone's ascending, someone's descending. There is no reference to Lady Fortuna or Lady Luck. This is all, appears to be masculine. Again, the numbering. Here we go. With the Vieville and the Noblet, we see what we're more or less accustomed to seeing. There is reference to the Italian Lady Luck on top of the wheel. But, we have ambiguous creatures ascending and descending, and again in reverse order. In the Fine Dalla Torre, Lady Fortuna, Lady Luck, ascending, descending at the bottom of their luck. And in the Mitelli, quite different. Lady Fortuna with a sack of coins, and that's the only story in this card. It's either wasting money or fortune is coming your way. A change of luck, right? Fortitude. So this is not a winged creature, but one could see how maybe these were misunderstood as wings. However, in the, I don't think so. I think they're recognized as being cloth, because the wings on Fortitude had already been appearing, because Fortitude is a virtue, and so virtuous cards tended to have wings. So we have the lion engaged with the woman in some stage of doing something to the lion's mouth. In the Vieville and the Noblet, again, reversed image, right? Including the numbers in this one. In the Noblet, it looks more female, and in the Vieville, a male. In the Fine Dalla Torre, a woman figure, no lion, with a reference to a column, because columns are associated with the virtue of fortitude, their longevity in the building, right? And again, with the Italian Bolognese, another Bolognese deck, we have a woman with a column. I mean, wonderful buildings survive the test of time, and many of them have columns. So that is the association with the column, but also there are stories from antiquity, like Samson and other stories where there is a column. Now, the Hanged Man is most decidedly a reference to an Italian tradition of punishment for treason or betrayal. And it's in the Paris deck. So we have the individual hung by one foot, which is a decidedly Italian punishment. In the Vieville, we have it also, but it's upside down. Some would argue that it was, intended to be this way. And, of course, when you look at the back of the original cards, I think someone, I think maybe Sullivan Hismans, discovered on some of these cards, I think he discovered it at least on the Dodal, that it was printed this way. Maybe it was because they were just not familiar with that, because it wasn't a French tradition. It was an Italian tradition of hanging by one foot. And so when, it was carved, it was not understood what it was. I'm not saying that that's a fact. I'm just saying that that's a possibility. It's kind of what I think. In the Noblet, though, it was properly identified as a hanging man. And again, in reverse to the Vieville. Now, again, this is an Italian deck, and so the Italians knew what this was in reference to, and so they had no confusion. Right? I want to mention also that the numbers that are on the Fine Dalla Torre are put in by the modern day publisher, not because they appeared on the card. Now, this card is quite different also from Bologna, but the punishment depicted for a traitor is depicted by a gentleman being bludgeoned in the head. And one of my subscribers, I apologize that I can't recall his name at this moment, pointed out that in the book by let me pull the book. Let me pause for a second, and I'll come back with the information so that I can give good information. Okay, here in the Untold Tarot by Caitlin Matthews, on page 69, we have a reference to the Mitelli Tarot. We see instead the grisly ancient punishment of a nail being hammered through the prisoner's temple by an executioner. So there we have it. So I don't know how I missed or forgot reading that when I read the book, but I did, and I couldn't remember. I didn't know when I did my last video. So thank you to my subscriber who pointed that out to me. So that is what this is being depicted. This is what this is depicting. It's another Italian tradition of how, a traitor was killed. But the Hanged Man really became the standard card, the image for the number 12 card. Okay. Death varies very little across tarot decks, typically personified with a skeleton, sometimes, most often, with a scythe. Notice in the Anonymous Tarot of Paris, we have the name. We have no name in the Vieville. Very similar imagery. Right? We have, the flowing cloth or ribbon or whatever. Interestingly, one example in the Noblet and the Vieville where they're going in the same direction. And again, in this deck, we have the word. In the Fine Dalla Torre, as in most all the cards, there are no number and no name. But we have death not walking with a scythe, but on a horse with a scythe. Very animated death. And in the Mitelli, he appears with a scythe. So in all, he has a scythe, sometimes with a name, sometimes not. In the Italian decks, you know, none of these cards and these two examples of Bologna decks have names. In this one, he's got an hourglass. And he's got a pyramid, showing time runs out, but time is also lasting. Temperance. We have flames, what appear to be flames in this deck, smoke, and only one vessel. Both of her hands are engaged with this one vessel. This is printed in reverse because the wording would have been read, you know, flip way. One hand with the vessel pouring into another vessel. So both hands are not actively engaged in the exchange of fluid from one to another. But then we have the image that we've become accustomed to see, and we have it here, right? So we have it in both the Italian deck and the Tarot of the Noblet Marseille, which is interesting. And then in the Mitelli, again. So, you know, the Italians also, at this period of time, had this image. Okay, the devil. We see in the Anonymous Tarot of Paris, the devil has an image in his belly. It's not exactly a pitchfork, but it is a tool that looks unpleasant. He has bird-like feet, flames, a chain, and unvirtuous wings. Not the type of wings we would see on a virtuous card, but the wings of someone who operates at night. In the Vieville, we again have a devil with a face in the belly, the wings of a creature, a nighttime creature, or a creature who operates in darkness. They both have the tail. I missed it on the first. They both have a tail. They both have bird-like feet, and he has faces elsewhere. But in the Noblet, again, there is a face in the belly, but he, like the Pope, there are two individuals who are tethered to, or maybe paying homage, which is a very interesting parallel to the Pope card. In the Fine Dalla Torre, again, more similar to the deck from Paris and Vieville, right? Oh, excuse me. Oh, it's in my hand already. I apologize. I have a tripod in front of my face, so it gets kind of confusing sometimes. So we see the deck from the Parisian Vieville deck and the Bologna deck, very similar. I don't see a face in this belly, but other than that, there are many similarities. We have, you know, the devil sticking his tongue out. They both have horns. They have the wings of a creature by a non-virtuous creature, and the tail, of course, and the animal, the bird-like feet. So the Fine Dalla Torre is very similar to the Vieville. in reverse. And then the Mitelli, which is a fire and brimstone god. Nothing in the belly. Horns, a pitchfork. Okay, we do see the pitchfork in the Fine Dalla Torre. We don't see it in the Vieville. We did see, a tool in the Paris deck. And as I mentioned before, the Noblet is quite different. But I love the Mitelli devil. He's a serpent. He has a serpent. Again, he has winged or like bird-like feet or whatever. And his trident or his pitchfork, the horns, the wings of a creature that fly by night to distinguish it from virtue, and of course, flames. Hmm. 16. I believe Le Foudre, I think it was either thunderclap or lightning. And there is a great amount of confusion. And if you look carefully, you'll see the eye of a creature, and the images that happen within kind of become part of the creature. It's almost like an optical illusion kind of thing. I've read about it and I've searched this card, and it's still a little bit confusing to me, but there's so much going on. But certainly it's a card of confusion at the very least, with flames. In the Vieville, we have a tree, a shepherd, his flock. You can make those out. I don't see that in the Vieville has any flame or anything, but there is some celestial activity occurring because there are things, specks of light or balls of something, right? We have a suggestion that maybe there's fire in the tree. But in the Noblet, we most decidedly have a tower with some type of calamity occurring from the sky. Again, activity of some type of celestial nature, because we have these balls of energy and individuals falling to their ruin. Now, the Fine Dalla Torres, their name is tower, right? So it's unusual that the name, a family whose name is connected to, a tower, would have a card in flame. So maybe they put because it would seem to me like it would be a bad omen. You'd think if anybody were to just do a tower for the tower card, it would be them. But they went with they went with it. And their tower is also being struck. Well, I don't know if it's being struck, but it's a tower in flames. And there is reference to celestial bodies up there and individuals falling. So I think this is very interesting. The Fine Dalla Torre, same period of time as the Noblet, in a few instances has very similar representation. Now here, for the same card, we have an individual who appears to have been struck by lightning. This bolt is hitting the individual, who seems to be kind of lit. And I've said it before in a few different videos, but he almost seems to be saying, like, may God strike me dead if I'm telling a lie or whatever. And that's what's happening. So the message is kind of the same, like divine intervention, right? Or divine punishment for something, just in a different way to represent it. Okay, when we get to the celestial cards, we have the star card. So we have a star, we have an astronomer, who in those days would have been considered who would have been an astrologer. They were the same, with his tools. So there's a reference to the heavenly body of star. And here we have a similar concept of an astrologer or astronomer with his tools, with the star. But then we have the Noblet, where we have a reference to the sign of Aquarius, the constellation Aquarius. And again, I've said it in a couple different videos when I went down the rabbit hole to figure out why did the Tarot of Marseille depict the star card in this way, where others from the period of time with that had astrologers or just referencing the night sky, why did this one choose to go? Why did this particular style opt to go with the constellation of Aquarius? And I learned that when the constellation of Aquarius appears in the sky, that's when the rains came in the Middle East. So there's a awareness of the Middle East, right, in this presentation here. At any rate, that's when the rains came, and so that was the fortuitous time when water came. So the figure could be representing rains coming and filling the river. Sometimes you see that the water, one picture is going in the water in the river, filling the river, and the other one is on the land, to show that this would be the opportune time to irrigate the land, which is what they did. So there are two variations of the Aquarius card. Well, there's more than two, I'm sure. But sometimes the two vessels are going into the river, which would be correct because it would show that the rains are coming. But then sometimes one goes in the river and one goes on the land, which is also correct because it shows that the rains are coming and it's an opportune time to irrigate the land. And of course, that's a really great representation for the star card because it shows an opportunity, right? It shows an opportunity is coming. But of course, the star card can mean more than that. It's not just a card of opportunity, but it's a card, we wish upon a star and we navigate our way using stars. And so the star is a most fortuitous card. But again, with the Bolognese deck, we have a reference to perhaps, these look like the three wise men. That's what this looks like, but I'm not positive. But it's a general reference to the star, possibly the three wise men, but not the constellation Aquarius. And in the Mitelli, back to when I was describing how maybe this became the Hermit card, the image of the Hermit card, we just have a simple guy walking at night with his lantern and his stuff in a sack. In the Anonymous Tarot of Paris, we have a gentleman for the moon card out in the moonlight serenading a woman who comes to her window, and she's nude. So there is a romantic reference, I guess. Activities that happen at night. And you know what? I wanted to mention the anomaly with the letters, the way it's written, because star, and it's not written on these cards, l'étoile, I think. Well, I don't know French, but I think there's like some kind of wordplay possibly with that card. Anyway, so to the moon, activities that happen in the evening. And here we have a woman spinning thread, which would have been a woman's job, right? Associated with women at that period of time. Under the moon, which is also associated with women. Now, we do see this image in other cards for the sun. Again, did something get lost in translation and cards got kind of confused? But we have a woman spinning thread under the moon. And it's not that I think that this would be an activity that would happen at night, but that the moon is associated with women, and spinning a thread would have been associated with women's work. I don't know this for a fact. I'm just sort of just saying that that's what I think. And then we have the image that we're aware of, the two canine type creatures, possibly howling under a full-faced moon. On either side is a tower, and in the center is a pool of water with a crayfish trying to surface. But we don't see that in the other cards of this period of time that I have on display here. Again, we have reference to, astrologers, checking out the night sky. And with the Mitelli, we do have a dog, but this is in reference to goddess Diana, who is associated with the moon, and hunt. Now, when I did my research on the Aquarius and why it was chosen, the constellation Aquarius, why it was chosen for Tarot of Marseille, I also tried to figure out why this image was chosen for the moon card. And I just wasn't getting too many answers, because who knows? I mean, it could have just been a location that has long been lost. Maybe it was a romantic place that lovers would go to see the moon, and in this particular location, there happen to be 2 towers, and maybe, it's a good place to eat seafood. I don't know. But I did learn that crayfish do come out at night to feed. And it occurred to me, with the appearance of 2 dogs directly over the crayfish, it would hinder the crayfish's ability to thrive, which kind of coincides with, maybe things that, happening that are, not the best, maybe like some kind of sneaky activity. Sometimes, the moon card can mean a lot of different things, right? But one aspect of the moon could be, kind of being thwarted in one's ability. But there's so many wild things happening in this card that it's almost dreamlike, which is another thing that the moon card can be associated with, is dreams, right? Or the subconscious mind. There's so much going on in this card. It's fascinating. Okay, now we have the Sun card. So we have a woman under the sun with a creature that looks like a monkey who is showing her something. Maybe it's a mirror, I don't know. A most unusual representation. A youth on a horse with an angry sun above. And we've seen this image, right? We've seen this. We have this one with 2 individuals, one male, one female, in front of a garden wall. And here we have, here we have in the Bolognese deck, a woman with the thread, but not under the moon, as in that we saw in the, I believe it was the Vieville, but in this deck from Bologna, the Fine Dalla Torre. And for the sun here, for the Mitelli, we have a reference to Apollo, the sun god. So we have all 3 quite different representations for the sun. All same period of time, all with a different image. Judgment, an angel, virtuous wings, making the announcement, blowing the horn, it's time, and individuals rising. And we have, across the board, a very similar image. And even with the Mitelli, although it's slightly different, you know, no one is ascending from the grave, but we do have the angel. And in fact, it is, this card is referenced as the angel and not judgment in Italy. But the angel is making the announcement that it's time. In some regions of Italy to this day, the angel card is seen as the final card. Even if the cards are numbered, and this is still numbered 20, the game is played with the angel as the last card. And finally, we get to the world card, the final card. And I so much prefer this type of world card to this. The reference here, you know, I think, in my opinion, is Christ, even though in some decks is represented by a female figure. J.M. David, in his book, reading the Tarot of Marseille, or the Marseille Tarot, shows that there is precedence for the Christ form to be depicted as a woman, you know, with the attributes of kindness and gentleness in the female form. But it also could have just been because something was lost in translation and the wood carver thought they were breasts and didn't know what he was copying, and that's also a distinct possibility. But I so much prefer the different world card, where the earth actually appears in the world card. And we see it in, I think, Belgian or maybe Swiss decks or Belgian cards. So here we have the Fine Dalla Torre. Again, no reference to the ascended Christ. You know, we have Mercury or Hermes. We have, you know, a city encased in this circular shape. And here we have, I guess, Atlas, the world card. There's the world. Now, I didn't pull, I should have, but I didn't. I started to pull some of the pip cards because they also varied, right? This is the Vieville, which does seem to adhere, you know, more or less to the Marseille style cards. I guess since I started it, maybe I'll pull a few of the pip cards just to show how they also varied, but I won't belabor the point. So the video will not go much further than this. So here in the Noblet, we most decidedly see what we have come to recognize as patterns for the pips is the pattern of Marseille. Let me get the other cards. Here we have some pips from the Mitelli, which you can see distinguishes itself quite profoundly from the pips of the Marseille deck. As do the pips from the Anonymous Tarot of Paris. You see it most profoundly in the batons, the swords. Quite unlike what we see in TDM. So again, I hope you found that this video was interesting. 5 tarot decks within 20 years of each of them in various areas of France, and 2 from Italy. I hope this was interesting to you. It's fascinating to me. Again, the best way to learn about the decks is to look at them. Until next time, friends, peace and stay well.